Hey, this is Robert Syvret of Syvret Music, and I'm going to be demonstrating how I approach drum programming. I am using Pro Tools 11, and the drum sample program I'm using is Slate drums, and I picked the Deluxe Rock Slate Rock 01 preset for this. So this song is basically just a rock song, and I tried to have varying drum parts going throughout that would be seemingly popular in most rock tunes. And as a start, I'll show you what the song sounds like. Alright, so that's basically a full rough mix of everything, including the final drum programming that I did for the song. And here's what the drums are isolated, so just by themselves, but this is still mixed, so you'll hear that they're kind of squashed and very compressed. So you get the idea. So what I'm about to show you should not be taken as this is the only way and the only right way and the best way to approach this, but this is kind of my way, and if just one person kind of finds help from it, then that's all that really matters. So right here I have the final editing that I did for the drums, and then down below I have the rough portion of it. So if we take a look at the final, this is in Pro Tools MIDI edit window. You'll see the velocity of each of the drum parts is kind of varied, and it looks like kind of a mess. And if we took a look at the original rough one, you'll see it's more standard. And so when I first approach drum programming, I play it out on my keyboard, which is the M-Audio Keystation 88ES. And I feel like it's good using a keyboard to start drum programming because you get a beginning live feel, and it makes it easier than just having set MIDI notes. So we'll start with the intro, which has this groove going on. So just a lot of crashes, and then, it's kind of driving. And so the first thing that I always do is, for me personally, I like setting all of the crashes that are in the song, which happen to be this sample and on this key too. And I will turn them up all the way. So for these, I'll just make sure that they're all the way up. And then from there, I will take these and I will bring them down to a more appropriate level, because sometimes when the velocity is too high on a sample, it will get a very hard attack. And when you're mixing, adding compression and punch to it, it becomes too attacking and begins to be a little bit overbearing, and there's not as much dynamics. So when we listen to this, the kick drum's kind of staying consistently in the same velocity area. And so what I like to do is pretend that the drummer isn't a robot and kind of take notes that are close together like these, and then just like changing the velocity a little bit just so that there feels to be a dynamic change between each of the hits. So then once you get this done, I always listen back whenever I make changes, just in case something might be soft, because with some samples, once you get really soft, it becomes very noticeable, and it differs with each sample program you're using, but for this one, the Slate drums, it stays pretty consistent, so I kind of eyeball it after using it so many times. Another thing too is I was missing a kick drum here. Alright, and then from the kick, I go to the snare. And you'll see that the balance is pretty good for the snare. You won't really hear too much of a difference with the snare hits. So one thing I might also try doing is moving them to different snare samples. So I have one snare sample here, and then on this D key I have another snare sample, and then on the D sharp there is the third snare sample, and they all have different sounds. So we'll first see what all these on the D sample sound like. So there's not too much of a difference, but then once you go up to D sharp, you'll notice a little difference. So there's some ring on that snare sound. So that's good to use when you're doing fills, or if you have like continuous snare parts going, that it's good to like use that to like seem like the drummer's not consistently hitting in the same spot, which adds to the realism. But for this instance, I'm just going to keep it all on the same sample. And what I usually do is I just go through each one and I'll bring them down, or I'll just bring them up randomly. And you'll see some of them are colored darker for higher velocity and then lower for the lower velocity. And so the ones that are higher, I try and keep them consistent. Alright, so we got this part done, and you're probably wondering why I don't edit the cymbals, and it's because, I don't know, the cymbals when they're crashing a lot and they're bleeding into one another, I usually like having them really loud and like attacking, so it adds more aggression. And when you start bringing them down, it does add a difference. I notice it more on the ride than I do the crash cymbals, so that's why I always keep them up here. And I also have two crashes, and switching between different crashes will give a better sense of depth with the drum set, and not the drummer having just like a small condensed kit, where as having multiple cymbals will seem like, you know, a bigger drum kit, you know, different tones. It will catch your ear when you're, you know, hitting a different drum cymbal. So I tend to like keep it balanced. And comes out well sometimes. But so we have this part, and we'll go to this part, which I took out of the song originally because I didn't like how it sounded. But just for demo purposes, I'll show you what this is. So that's like a little hi-hat fill that starts off into the song when the guitar's going by itself. And so when I played this and I quantized it, you can hear how the hi-hat sounds not normally played, where all the notes are almost all the same volume and very robotic. So what I think of when it comes to fills and quick intervals like this is, if a drummer's right-handed strong, then all the right-handed notes are going to be stronger than the left-handed, and then vice versa if left-handed is stronger than the right. So in this case, my drummer is all right-handed, so I'll start with making the right hand stronger than the left hand. And then for faster intervals, I'll keep the notes lower so that everything's not at a consistent volume. So you hear there that the notes got a little bit too low. So that, to me, sounds a lot more realistic than before, where all the notes were the same-ish velocity. And then since these velocity notes are pretty high on the spectrum, I'll reduce them some more. Yeah, and there's basically a rough edit of that portion. So we've got the intro and the chorus, and then the next part is the verse. So you can hear there's some stuff that needs to be fixing, and I will get to that in the next part. So thank you for watching, and be on the lookout for the next video.